What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you like me, you've been waiting for a new Pokemon TCG Pocket set. Well, we have Mythical Islands being debuted, a sneak peek today on the official channel with some, well, pretty cool cards being showcased to us. We're gonna start with the trailer here so we can get a full idea of what's going on, and then I'm gonna give you some sneak peeks at what I think are my favorite cards that we've been seeing so far. Now let's check out the trailer here first before we get into some of the details. Very short, like 50-second trailer. We see Liepard there, maybe a new Gyarados as well. We see, yeah, you saw it in the background. Now Mew EX is being showcased here, and I think Mew EX is gonna have a pretty excellent spot in the meta if you're a tournament grinder out there doing some of these unofficial tournaments. You can see that it's still labeled 1A Mini A, so it's the mini set. You got a sneak peek at some of the cards. We'll break those down for you here. And I think genome hacking is gonna have some play. All right, this is a card I'm very excited for. Aerodactyl EX, maybe possibly pretty good, but maybe not. We'll talk about this one as well. It seems pretty good, but pretty powerful supporters as well. And that Tauros and Marshadow could be doing some cool things here. So I can't wait to get my hands on this set. About 70-ish new cards are coming out this Tuesday, December 17th. Now, the first one here we want to talk about is going to be Mew EX, and I see this card kind of getting played in a lot of different strategies, not even predominantly psychic decks, although this is going to be a good card in those situations. 1 energy for 20 damage is fine. It's nothing to write home about. It's not crazy. The basic Pokemon HP here at 130 for a EX Pokemon is pretty low. A lot of the times we see like 140, 150. Right, so think about something like Mewtwo EX out there. It is a little bit higher than something like a Pikachu EX. And if you're fighting something that is like an Arcanine EX deck that has 120 damage on its attack, they are going to need a Giovanni to one-shot your Mew EX, although there is going to be a supporter that we'll talk about that actually will prevent Giovanni breaking that threshold to one-shot something like a Mew EX after this set is released. But the attack we really want to talk about is going to be the 3 colorless energy genome hacking. Choose one opponent's active Pokemon's attack and use that for your attack. This is pretty cool. The one thing I don't know about this yet is it doesn't say that you have to pay for all costs associated with that attack. So think of something like Charizard EX 200 damage attack. You might be able to use genome hacking on a Charizard EX and just not have to discard inner energy and just do 200 to it, which could be pretty substantial there. But we want to talk about how great this is going to be for those circumstances. Maybe you're playing a deck that doesn't have a way to do 200 damage, 120 damage, 150 damage, all in one big swing to knock out some of these very high HP stage 2 EX Pokemon. Mew EX could be a very fantastic singleton Pokemon to throw in some of your 20 card decks in the Pokemon TCG Pocket universe, and that's going to be for a couple of reasons. We want to hit that like nice 5 basic Pokemon as the threshold for consistency and getting the basics you want, and not having not enough basics in your Pokemon and losing out in certain circumstances and certain matchups that way. I think that this is going to see a lot of play for that reason. Maybe you can get the Mew EX out on the field and combine it with something like an aggressive start. I like to use a lot of Wheezing decks, a lot of Wigglytuff EX decks, a lot of decks out there that do like sneaky things, but they don't really have a big one-hit KO move in the deck itself. And a lot of the times those strategies really fall prey to your opponent, bringing that big Venusaur EX, the big Charizard EX or Arcanine EX, and just doing a lot of damage, and you just can't keep up with that amount of damage in these slower stall type matchups. And this is going to give you the ability to just kind of have that Mew EX in your deck, find it with a Pokeball later on, sort of stall out your opponent's strategy there, and then bring in that genome hacking, turn 4, 5 or whatever, and claim those last couple of prize cards that might just be a little bit out of reach. So I think Mew EX is going to see a lot of play in the Pokemon TCG Pocket metagame. And maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I think this card, especially in combination with its single retreat cost, has a lot of room to grow and a lot of flexibility with that triple colorless energy attack. Now, our first supporter we're going to talk about here is going to be Blue, and I don't know exactly how I feel about Blue because this is a defensive supporter card that you might not always get the full benefit out of. It's reverse Giovanni. During your opponent's next turn, all of your Pokemon take 10 less damage. So yes, if your opponent's using Articuno, right, your active will take 70 instead of 80, and you'll take no damage on any of your bench Pokemon, which is pretty cool out there. But Blue can be used to make sure that your opponent can't hit a specific breakpoint. A lot of games in Pokemon TCG Pocket are pretty deterministic. you'll be like, if they have this Giovanni on turn 3 when they go for this attack, I'm going to lose if they have it. If they don't have it, I'm going to win, right? If they can't one-shot my Pokemon I've invested my energy in, then I'm going to win this game. So it's kind of, a lot of the times you just make that play, you just kind of hope they don't have Giovanni because it's your best play. Blue could see some play in those circumstances because you, as a player, knowing the game's a little deterministic on turn 1, 2, or 3, you kind of know how the game's going to play out. Blue could absolutely be used in those circumstances where it's like your opponent could have Giovanni, and if they do have it, you lose, but you just play blue for your supporter that turn, and even if they do have the Giovanni, they can't KO your active Pokemon, they can't do anything, and you're going to guarantee win that game that turn. So how often is blue going to be played? That's going to be determined based on all of the different breakpoints and all of the different metagames of the different decks that are going to be used after this new 70 card set does come out, but he could be played in a lot of these different setups. Now, Vaporeon is a near and dear to my heart, and this one could be pretty powerful for these aggressive water strategies due to its ability of washout. Now, as often as you like during your turn, you may move one energy from a benched water Pokemon to your active water Pokemon. And this can be used in conjunction with a lot of the very aggressive water Pokemon like Starmie EX. Combination of free retreat with Starmie EX, right, allows you to get out there with Starmie EX, do some damage. When it's about to go down, you swap it out so you don't give up that free prize card, right, those 2 points to the opponent, and you can put that 2 water energy from your newly retreated Starmie EX onto whatever you just swapped it with, allowing you to be super energy efficient. And that's going to be sort of the one downside of Vaporeon, is it's adding energy efficiency to a lot of water archetypes that are already pretty energy efficient, right? 2 for 90 on Starmie EX, great. 2 for 60 on something like Greninja, fantastic. Water has the ability to use something like Misty, also pretty good. RNG or not, pretty great in that circumstance. So you could use Vaporeon as a way to sort of min-max, maybe get away from the Misty RNG. Think about a circumstance like this. You, like, once again, Starmie EX, you get 2 energy on it, hit something for 90, it takes a bunch of damage, it's 10 HP away from dying, you retreat your Starmie EX, you evolve your EV into Vaporeon, and you put out something like Articuno or Lapras. You move those 2 energy from your retreated Starmie EX to your newly active EX Articuno or EX Lapras, put 1 more energy on it, and you're ready to rock and roll once again. So there's a lot of tempo that this Pokemon can give to these water archetypes, and I think it's a pretty good shot that we could see this be a mainstay in a lot of different water decks. Now, this might be the most talked about card that's been spoiled so far, which is Aerodactyl EX, 140 health on a stage 1 evolution, evolves from Old Amber, obviously. Pretty decent stat line. It only has 1 retreat cost, which is something we like to see in combination with X speed. And here's really why it's getting talked about. Primeval Law, the ability your opponent can't play any Pokemon from their hand to evolve their active Pokemon. 2 things about this. Aerodactyl EX does not need to be your active Pokemon for this to work. There is no, as long as Aerodactyl EX is your active Pokemon clause on its ability, making you think that it's probably pretty busted. One thing about this, though, is that your opponent can still evolve their benched Pokemon. So Aerodactyl EX is not going to come down and just absolutely destroy these, ramping decks that want to utilize something like Gardevoir on the bench to charge up their active Mewtwo's, or use Moltres on the active spot to charge up their benched Arcanine EXs and Charizard EXs. Your opponents are still going to be able to evolve those Pokemon on their bench anyway, really sort of dampening the power of Primeval Law from Aerodactyl EX, meaning that I'm not particularly sure that we'll be seeing a lot of play from this card. I think it'll get played a lot, right, the day that it comes out, and people will just see that it doesn't really disrupt these evolution ramping decks pretty much at all. If they're allowed to do their game plan, they can do their game plan whether or not Aerodactyl EX is in play. Your opponent's not putting Growlithe in play and sort of just trying to evolve it right away. That's not what that deck wants to do anyway. So Aerodactyl EX in those circumstances, could absolutely stop them from evolving their Pokemon. But in most circumstances, it means that those decks drew poorly anyway, and you are probably going to win the game whether or not you were playing with Aerodactyl EX in your deck or not. Now, those of you who have played other non-Pokemon TCG Pocket games do know that the creators of the game like to sort of start to balance around the special Pokemon, EX Pokemon, VMAX Pokemon, GMAX Pokemon. And a lot of the times they'll introduce Pokemon or items or equipment, right? We'll see in the future possibly being added to TCG Pocket in the form of things that definitely get a power bump against whatever seems to be the big bad of the format at that time. So this is a stage 1 Pokemon, 100 HP, double retreat cost in the form of Tauros, takes 3 energy to do 40 damage. But if you're using this attack against an active EX Pokemon, it's going to do 80 more damage, meaning that it does 120 damage to an EX Pokemon. So you can one-shot something like Pikachu EX with Tauros, assuming they don't have something like blue and see through your play. You can also use Tauros to come out off the bench after an opponent's Arcanine EX, for instance, does 20 damage to itself, knocks itself down to 130. You bring Tauros out, you put a Giovanni out there, and you do 130 and knock out that opposing Arcanine EX as well. So it could be pretty decent. 3 energy is a lot, especially since it's not in a type that can ramp at all. It's not a fire Pokemon, it's not a water Pokemon. You can't Misty this guy, you can't Moltres it. There's no colorless ramp right now in Pokemon TCG Pocket, but it could have a play. It could have a little bit of play. I'm not sure if this is the answer to EX Pokemon that we all want to see, but even if this card, specifically Tauros here, doesn't get used to fight against Pokemon EXs and isn't like a meta-defining card, which I'm not sure it's going to be, it does give us a little bit of glimpse into what the creators of the game are kind of thinking about when balancing around Pokemon EXs. A lot of players were speculating on, are we going to follow the same footsteps as like the traditional Pokemon in-game, right? The actual card game, where the developers will institute different things that get stronger against Pokemon EXs. And based on Tauros existing now, the answer is going to be yes. So we'll probably see more cards like this Tauros that definitely get stronger against EX Pokemon or whatever seems to be the Pokemon of the day, right? We'll see more of these cards. And if he's not the strongest one, well, then probably one of the other ones will be even stronger than Tauros. Now, I haven't really seen anyone talk about Leaf here. This is going to be a new supporter card. And I think Leaf has the potential to be pretty dang good in certain circumstances. We all know the power of X speed, where your retreat costs 1 less. Leaf is going to be a supporter that makes the retreat cost of your active Pokemon 2 less. And this is going to be pretty great in a lot of circumstances, depending on just how heavy your Pokemon are that you're using in your deck. A lot of the times, Pokemon that have 2 or 3 retreat costs just don't really see play. Think about something like Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan's cool, up to 60 damage for 1 energy, 100 HP, right? Can stall a lot of attacks, but getting it out of the active spot is just absolutely awful, right? If your opponent Sabrina's out, your Kangaskhan that was on your bench, it feels terrible. There's almost no way for you to get that thing out of the active slot anymore. We don't have anything crazy like Switch in Pokemon TCG Pocket yet, but Leaf, in conjunction with just your energy for the turn, can allow you to retreat something that has up to 3 retreat cost, and it only costs the energy that it would use out of your energy pile for that turn. However, you can also, right, even though it's this supporter, combine it with an X speed, and all of a sudden you have -3 to your retreat cost for your active, meaning that if your opponent Sabrina something out, you can play Leaf, you can play an X speed, you can move that thing out of the active slot for free and still use your energy card from your energy zone for that turn on whatever you want. So I think like a 1 of Leaf in some circumstances, depending on the retreat cost of your Pokemon, could be pretty good. If you've been playing the game for a while, you know that this is the Pikachu art from Neo Genesis out there. We also got a sneak peek at a new Pikachu that maybe could go in the Raichu Pikachu EX deck. This is gonna be 60 health, it's gonna have 1 retreat cost, and it's gonna do 10 damage for each of your benched electric Pokemon. So it's kind of like a much worse version of Pikachu EX, but it could replace the basic Pikachu we have right now that just does like 20 for 1 in these Pikachu Raichu decks. This one probably in these Pokemon decks, right, Pikachu EX decks, it's probably 1 for 30, which is pretty decent. It's a little bit, it's 10 above average. So I wanted to mention this real quick. Yes, we don't have the full art for it yet. It only got caught up in the trailer a tiny bit there, but we wanted to mention this thing. I think it's just going to replace your Pikachus. Marshadow also is being debuted here. Yeah, Marshadow. We have a lot of Kanto Pokemon so far in TCG Pocket, but Marshadow is a pretty new age Pokemon. 80 HP, it's a basic, it's not an EX, and it has Revenge. For 2 energy, you do 40 damage, which isn't really all that great all that time. We've seen a lot of stage 1s that do 70 for 2. This one does 40, but if you got knocked out last turn from an opponent's attack, it's going to do 60 more damage. So this could be 2 energy for 100 damage. Now, this could be good in some circumstances. We'll have to see out there, right? It's a basic Pokemon, means it only gives up 1 point to your opponent. So if you're using a bunch of non-EX Pokemon in your deck, Marshadow could be pretty good because you want to punish your opponent for knocking out your Pokemon. you don't really want to do that after your Pokemon is knocked out that is an EX, right? If your opponent knocks an EX Pokemon out, they get 2 points. You send out Marshadow, you revenge. They KO your Marshadow, you've lost the game. So we could see Marshadow possibly in some sort of like aggressive fighting style deck that maybe wants to end with an EX Pokemon of its own, do some early damage with some early fighting types, right? Chip away, they KO that, you bring in Marshadow, you KO their EX Pokemon, right? They KO your Marshadow, you're both 2 prizes each, and then you bring out your EX Pokemon off the bench and just sort of wrap up the game there with that sort of strategy. So could be pretty good here. I'm looking forward to seeing what Marshadow could do. And then lastly, but not least, we have a couple other Pokemon cards that we've seen. New Execute, right? Delmise in here, Magmar, sadly two energy for 80 damage, but you have to discard an energy off of it. It's fine. You can use this in conjunction with Blaine to do 30 more. So you can do 110 in the same turn, which is okay, but you have to discard 2 fire energy, and I'm not really cool with that. And we're seeing more new aged Pokemon, right? We have Snivy in here, Moraloo, we have Dedenne in here as well. Some new non-Kanto Pokemon. So I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on this new setup and saving up on my free-to-play account. I really want to get access to some Mew EXs. So, you know, if you open them up and you're on my friends list, make sure you give me some good Wonder picks, okay? Let me know what you think about these. We'll see more of this on Tuesday, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Hit that sub.